And welcome back to the Texas Longhorn Football Channel. I am your host, your main man for the evening, Anwar Richardson, aka your drunk uncle. If it's Wednesday night, you know what time it is. It is time for your Drunk Uncle Sports Podcast. Hello, everybody. It's been a long week. Listen, here's what we know. Two things that are going to happen. If you're having a good week, we're about to make it better. If you're having a bad week, we're about to uplift your spirits and make it better. Either way, we're going to the next level here on a Wednesday hump day, as it is, as you guys start to file in and get into this thing where we're going to get into a whole bunch of. I am super excited about my guest. I'll bring him in a second, but super excited to have this guest here because he's a guy I've been looking forward to talking to for a while, but I'm really excited to connect to him. As you guys start filing in, please do a couple of things. Hit like, so you just hit like on the video, just because, for no other reasons than it's there. Hit the like video because that helps all the time. And of course, hit subscribe if you have not subscribed to the channel, because hey, you want to get all the notifications, want to know what's going on this channel. When for all you guys not now to get the notifications, know it's Wednesday night, it's Drunk Uncle time. We're about to do it now. By the way, I know since we're probably gonna since John is gonna be here, there's gonna be some people wondering what the hell is going on with this Texas Longhorn Football Channel thing. I'm really confused as to why this guy is wearing a fedora. Your Drunk Uncle Sports Podcast. This is a drinking game. What the hell is the genesis of this whole thing? Okay, make sure I break it down for you guys who are brand new to the show, who maybe from the Bama side, and maybe some first-time Longhorn people. But by the way, if you watch this for the first time, where the hell you been? So listen, simple genesis of the show is this. This is a family. Dysfunctional as it is, it's still a family, okay? And listen, we take them all sizes, shapes, colors, races, everything like that. And we start thinking about the family. One of the most entertaining people in your family is usually your drunk uncle. Now, your drunk uncle is going to tell you some funny stuff, some funny stories. He's going to be the life of the party. But at the end of the day, you're going to feel like, man, Drunk Uncle actually dropped some knowledge and I learned something from it. So yes, I do have a drink in my cup, but this is not a frat. It's basically, that's the genesis of your Drunk Uncle Sports Podcast. And if you had a drunk uncle, it would definitely be me and Rodolfo. No strippers and no pimp cane at this time. So any case, listen, you guys know what's going on this week. I don't even have to tell you about what's going on this weekend. You guys, we've been waiting for this really since this thing was put on the schedule or the future schedule years ago. The opportunity to see Texas and Alabama home and home series. And I started thinking about, okay, I need to bring in someone to talk about this thing. I need an expert in this thing. So I reached out to my main man, Andy Staples, who's been on the show, as you guys know before. I reached out to my main man, Andy. I was like, man, Andy, who would be a person that I can talk to about Bama? Who's the expert that's there? And Andy, within a minute, friend of the show, says you got to talk to John Talty, and just sent me his contact info. And just totally gave it up, right? Just totally gave me his contact info, social security number, and it just gave me everything. He said you got to get this guy on the show, right? So, but listen. This is what's awesome, man. Hey, Blake, put this on the screen. John is an author of a book that just came out about a month ago. It's called The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, How Alabama's Coach Became the Greatest Ever, which, by the way, he is the GOAT, by John Talty. You can't see it, but right at the top, there's an endorsement by Paul Feinbaum, which may or may not be good. But no, if you're in the state of Alabama and you have Paul co-signing on the book, it definitely means a lot. And so, but also John is also the senior sports editor and of course SC Insider at AL.com. They do tremendous work over there. They've been doing that for years. I think I knew a couple of people I've worked. I think Izzy Gold at one point worked there, and I've known a couple of other people that have worked over there. Really fantastic. I was actually part of that chain. You can go ahead and bring John in. I was also a part of that chain. John, I don't know how long you've been there, but was part of the Booth newspapers. I used to work at M Live, several years ago. So it was M Live, AL.com. We were all kind of part of the whole family. Definitely enjoyed it. But my main man, Now, I don't know what uncle you're going to be, John, but John Talty is in the show. And thank you for joining us this evening.
I appreciate it. I mean, you're already making me want to have a drink, so I feel like I want to get into the drunk uncle thing too right now.
Yeah, listen, it's 9 o'clock in Alabama, and so you should be on your second at this point. So feel free because that's what we do. This is an adult show, so there's some drinking there. There's also what do you say? Honor and impress with your guest. I like his work. Well, look at that, David. Look, John, right there, right away.
I love it.
That's so amazing. I didn't even have to pay him to say that. That's amazing, John. When we get started, yeah, wow, comes on fun. Good report. Look at you guys have done your homework here. I like it. You're getting love from the Texas fans already, which just says a lot. So, John, I'm curious about the book itself, right? I want to start with the book before we get into the whole Texas Alabama thing of what's going on this week, because the book sounds fascinating. First of all, amazing title, just amazing title, very intriguing. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, I gotta get this book. Give me an idea, John. Give me like the genesis of this book and what kind of what started the process of you wanting to write this, because it really sounds fascinating.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I mean, obviously there have been other books written about Nick Saban, and he is a guy that has been covered for a good bit for a long time. There's been plenty of big stories about him, plenty of big video features, things like that. But I didn't think that anybody had really done the angle, specifically looking at it from a leadership and kind of business standpoint because so many people, having covered Alabama for a pretty good bit now, so many people will tell you, whether it's coaches, players, recruits, they say Nick Saban runs it like a Fortune 500 company. So you hear over and over again. And to me, I thought, okay, that's interesting, but like, is there actually truth to that? Is there actually something about how he runs that organization that is comparable to a business? Are there things that are translatable about what he's doing that would be successful beyond just a college football program? And so for me, I really wanted to get into not only the how he does things, how he's been able to build this incredible operation in Alabama that's been top college football for more than a decade now, but the why, like why he does the things that he does on a daily basis, why he recruits the way he does, why he hires the people he does, including Steve Sarkisian, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and whether there was anything translatable from that might apply to somebody running a business in Texas or Alabama, wherever it might be. And so that was kind of why I wanted to take the angle that I did. And fortunately, so far it's gotten a good reaction. People seem to like it, and I think what's made me happy is that if you're a college football fan, which I imagine our audience tonight here is, you're going to love it. There's going to be a lot in there from a college football standpoint that's really going to apply to you. But I've had friends who don't care about college football at all just read it, like there's interesting stuff in here. Whether if people are a teacher, like I might use something with this with my classroom and stuff like that. And that's what's been really cool for me, beyond just the football people.
Give us a couple of things that you feel like you learned about his leadership skill in the process of doing your research. What are some of the things? I'm sure there's a lot of it. You wrote an entire book, right? But
sure.
But don't read the book. But give us some of the things that you felt like that stood out. Maybe some things that the audience would love to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll appeal directly to the Texas audience. Let's talk about Sark for a second. I think one of the things, there's a couple of things here. I think one of the things that Nick Saban has done really well that a lot of other coaches have since kind of copied, but he was the first one to do it, was taking people like Sark, like Lane Kiffin, like Mike Locksley, who might have failed elsewhere, but Nick Saban didn't see them as failures. He saw there's something that this guy did that obviously made him successful, that allowed him to be a head coach in the first place. If we can put him in our organization, take away some of the pressure of being a head coach, we're not asking them to be a head coach. We're asking them to do this maybe one thing. And so I think when Sark first got to Alabama, he was specifically helping Lane Kiffin with red zone strategy, right? So he has all this swirling stuff around him, some very well publicized issues. Comes to Alabama, people, I mean, I remember talking to players, they didn't, like, there was no big announcement that Steve Sarkeesian is now an analyst. He just showed up one day, and all of a sudden he was just in the back of a room, and they're like, is that Steve Sarkeesian? And like, he just was. I mean, they didn't like say anything about it, and I think within that, what Saban's good at is, again, he gives people specific roles and then he holds them accountable. And so he's not asking Steve Sarkeesian to do everything. He's like, we need you to do this one thing. You show up at this time, you do your thing, you do it the way that we want to do it. And if you do it that way, you're going to be really successful. And when there's jobs in the future, we'll consider bumping you up. And he had this whole real operation going there, which he hires a guy as an analyst, a job opens up, and he's able to slide them up a spot or two based on being already familiar with how they do things, being in the organization for a year or two. So I think that took foresight to hire those kind of guys where other people didn't want to touch them. And Sark has, of course, talked about that. I mean, Saban saved his career essentially, and I think that was something that was smart. That a lot of other coaches didn't do before Saban did that.
So, and I was curious because usually the path has always been if a coach loses his job, they go into as a coordinator, right? And that's usually like, okay, you do a coordinator thing for a couple of years, you rebuild yourself, and then you take another head coaching job. Do you know how is he able to convince guys, to your point, to become an analyst? Now those guys are getting paid, from the other schools, but convince those guys to what some would say would take, a lesser role, but being able to sit there and then knowing that, like you said, to your point, a couple of years later, they would actually get back into head coaching. Like, how did he start that? Because it's really, like you say, he's the pioneer for that. He became the blueprint of that. Everyone else has followed that. How did he start that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The first guy who he started with is Mike Groh, the son of the former UVA head coach Al Groh, who's the New York Jets head coach at one point too. And Mike Groh at the time was working for his dad actually at UVA, and there was a bit of, I guess, a power struggle. Mike Groh was the offensive coordinator. He gets fired, doesn't know what he's going to do. And Saban hires him as a graduate assistant at the time. This guy was 30 years old, basically. He was an offensive coordinator in the ACC the year earlier. And he just convinces him, like, hey, I think this will be good for you. And there was a connection there between, Groh had a Belichick connection, which connected to Saban. And so there was some kind of family ties there. But he convinced Groh to do it. Groh does a year. It actually was 2009, won a national championship at Alabama over Texas. And then, he gets hired elsewhere. They bring him back as a wide receivers coach. And that kind of set the ball rolling. And then from there, Billy Napier was the next kind of big one. He was the Clemson offensive coordinator. He gets fired. He sees what happened to Mike Groh. He comes in as an analyst. He gets bumped up when Mike Groh leaves for the NFL. So that kind of started the ball rolling. But I think there's a couple things why. One, as you mentioned, money helps. And so Butch Jones is a good example. I think he was getting about $9 million from Tennessee. He's getting these monthly paychecks. He doesn't really need money because anything he makes just gets subtracted from what he's getting from Tennessee. So you don't really need money in that scenario. And so he can go to Alabama and make, I think it was about $35,000 a year because it just doesn't matter. He's already getting paid from Tennessee either way. I think the second part of that is that it's basically almost like taking like a doctorate or graduate level kind of class on coaching. One of the guys I remember talking to for the book, Eric Kiso, who's now the Auburn offensive coordinator, he came in as an analyst, and he said it was like one of the best years of his coaching career because he could, as an analyst, he didn't have, wasn't running a position group. He wasn't a coordinator. So he was like, some days I would just go into Kirby Smart's meetings and just listen to him explain defense. And I would just be taking notes the whole time. Another day I might be going into, Lane Kiffin's meetings and listen to what he had to say. And so he was like, I just took all these notes and all these notepads, and I know Mike Loxley has talked about the same thing. He's got like notepads full of things that he just picked up from working there. So there's less pressure and there's more of an opportunity to grow as a coach. And then, of course, again, you see the track record of guys. And at this point, if you come in as an analyst, it's probably going to work out pretty well for you.
Blake, please put the graphic back on the screen just so everyone can see. For those who've joined us a little bit late, the person we're talking to is John Talty. He's the author of The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban, How Alabama's Coach Became the Best Ever. If you guys haven't gotten this book and you're a college football fan, you got to add it to your collection because John is really breaking down some wisdom. John, I'm curious because now Saban has a reputation of bringing in all these assistants, right? And who have been head coaches who maybe, like you said, have failed at elsewhere. But the one interesting thing is no matter what assistants come and go, Saban is still steady, right? He still wins, whether, Sarkeesian is there or gone, whether Les Miles is there, whether, like I said, Les Miles, Lane Kiffin, I meant to say, whether it's Loxley, like it no matter what, who it all comes to go. So is it essentially the assistants aren't making Saban, right? Is Saban essentially making the assistants?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I mean, there have been numerous times where you felt like, of course, they're going to have to drop off here, right? They lose X assistant, and then they find a way to win another national championship. And I think what Saban does is he also, when he's recruiting, he will prepare recruits for the inevitability of that. And so he'll tell them, I'm going to be here and our process is going to be here. I can't make
Mm.
promises about anybody else, basically. So if you're coming here because Bill O'Brien's the offensive coordinator, like he might not be here in a year. You can't come for that reason. You have to come for
Wow.
the organization. And so I think that helps, kind of fight back against some of the issues that come with the transition. The other thing that he does that's smart, and Bill O'Brien is the example I'll use. So when he hires Bill O'Brien, again, this guy a year earlier was the Houston Texans head coach, right? Pretty big job. And so
Mm-hmm.
he comes in. I mean, this is guy worked with Tom Brady. I mean, Bill O'Brien's a well-known guy. Well, when he brings him in, he's making Bill O'Brien learn their terminology, not making his team learn Bill O'Brien's terminology. And so his mentality is, I'd rather make one grown man learn how we do things than make 60 kids have to learn all these different, play calls and things like that O'Brien wants to do. And so that's
Mm.
challenging for O'Brien, and that takes some humbleness from him to be like, okay, fine, I'll do this. But that helps, I think, limit the transitional hiccups that you would have if every year you have a new offensive coordinator. Well, if they all have different play names, I mean, you're just going to slow down the transition every year doing that. And so he's got these little things in place that I think help when those things pop up. But of course, I mean, Saban's not perfect, and who he hires is important. And there have been certain years, and one of them was when Alabama lost to Clemson out in California in the title game, where like his staffing was not perfect that year, and I think he realized that and kind of adjusted the following years. So those people are important, but Saban is the consistent. He is the standard, and that'll have a much bigger impact whenever he decides to hang it up than any one coordinator or assistant.
John, tell me, let's talk a little bit about Sark. Sark did, like you said, he spent a few years out there, started as the analyst, kind of gets bumped up, I guess after, Kiffin, takes the job at Florida Atlantic. Hopefully my timelines are correct. Coaches and kind of in the playoffs and then takes over as the OC. Tell us about Sark at Bama and what you remember about that and how he was viewed during his tenure under Saban.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fascinating thing because he gets hired. Again, he just basically shows up one day. Again, players
Mm-hmm.
told me that like there was no big announcement, there's no big, here's Sark. He just started showing up one day, and there's Sark. Okay, so Alabama wins national semifinal against Washington, and and I write about this in the book, but there were issues with how Lane Kiffin was doing things in that game, and he was having some wasn't basically locked in the way he wanted to. And so Nick Saban famously, and they framed it as basically a mutual decision, but Nick Saban essentially fires Lane Kiffin in between the semifinal and the national championship game and promotes Steve Sarkisian from being an analyst to having to be the offensive coordinator in the national championship game. And I mean, I've thought about I don't think we think about how wild that is. There's just so much wild stuff that happens in college football that we forget that Nick Saban fired his offensive coordinator in between a semifinal game and a championship game. So he bumps up Sark. They lose that game, and Lane Kiffin himself has basically said, "If I was the offensive coordinator, we were certainly questions after that game. If it was Kiffin, would they have won?" He gets promoted to offensive coordinator. He leaves about a month or two later to go to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think there were some fans who are kind of like, good riddance. He doesn't want to be here. That's fine. Well, 2 years later, he gets fired by the Falcons, and Alabama hires Sark. And at the time, I don't think it was a particularly well-liked hire. I think that there's a lot of trust in Saban, and especially amongst the Alabama fan base. And so I don't think people were rioting about it. But there was kind of that's weird. It's interesting that he's hiring Sark after kind of flaming out in the NFL and bailing pretty fast after the last time. But I think Sark came in, he did a really good job. Obviously, they end up winning the national championship game in 2020, and one of the most dominant seasons in college football history. I mean, it's a little tainted just because of COVID that year, and we might not remember it that way. But that was an absolutely dominant Alabama team, and Sark was leading the offense. And I think that was really the year that Sark came into his own. Nick Saban got knocked out with COVID one game, and he picked Sark to be the head coach of that game. I think that was a big moment. And I can just tell you, and I read about it in the book, Saban really liked Sark, really, really liked him. And Sark had a couple of head coaching opportunities pop up after that year, one of which Auburn wanted to interview him. I remember we wrote about it at the time that Auburn really, really liked him, really wanted to interview him. And Alabama essentially kind of interceded and was prepared to bump up Sark's salary. And as part of that conversation, they basically intimated to him that, if you're willing to stay around for a little bit, like you could be the guy to replace Saban. We like you that much, and Nick respects you that much that you're willing to stay. Like this job could be yours. Of course, Texas comes along, and you can't say no to Texas. And I think everybody understood why Sark did that. But at the time, he was willing to turn down an opportunity to interview for the Auburn job because of how much he liked Saban and how much Saban liked him. And so it was a real strong partnership between those two guys.
It's interesting because I got the chance to go to SEC media days and talk to Nick Saban, and he kind of talked about the relationship that he had with Sark, and also had to talk to Sark about this also in the off season. I'm kind of curious because there seems to be a mutual admiration between them. There seems to be mutual respect, and it doesn't seem to be typical coach speak. Seems like there probably is a good relationship that's there. Is that typical for Saban with all of his assistants? Is he just lovey-dovey with all of them? Or is this kind of a special, unique thing from your experience?
Well, I think there's another guy in Texas who would say that it's not all lovey-dovey between Nick Saban and his former assistants. Jimbo had some interesting comments this year, right? It's not. And I think what's interesting is, and I'll psychoanalyze Saban a little bit here. I think he truly does really like him. I think what changes for Saban is he's so uber competitive. I mean, you could say ruthlessly competitive, really, that I think the relationship starts to change when he either feels threatened or there's more of that level of competition, right? And so I think when Saban retires, he'll look back and look at Kirby Smart, be like, this guy was my protege, right? This was the guy who followed my process as closely as anybody. And he will have so much respect and admiration for Kirby, I think, once he leaves. But right now, I mean, Saban wants to beat his ass, and that's just what he wants to do. And I was talking to somebody, about that championship game this last year. And because Saban was very gracious in the immediate aftermath of the game, very highly of Kirby and somebody. And it was like, yeah, Saban for probably about 12 hours was gracious. And then afterwards, he just wanted to destroy Kirby again. And that's just, I think, how he's wired. And so you could say maybe part of it is that Sark hasn't risen to that level yet where he really feels like Sark is going to take him down, where maybe that changes the relationship. But to this point, I do think that there is a lot of, admiration between the two of them. And one of the things that I think people sometimes with Saban, because he's such a ruthless competitor and because he wants to win so bad, people view him as just some of the things that he does is purely just cutthroat type winning stuff. And there's obviously some truth to that. But there is this part of him, and maybe it's some Catholic guilt, whatever you want to call it, where he does try to help people who have fallen. I think that's something he actually does think a lot about. And so I think for him to be able to feel like he played a role in Sark's kind of reclamation project, I do think it's something that he cares a lot about. And I think that might be in part why there's a little bit of a closer relationship there. And I think also Sark seems to show him a lot of deference, more so than some of these other guys that are competing against him, more so than Lane for sure.
So when you think about this Texas Alabama game this weekend, how does Saban, from a mental, how does he approach it? Does he get more amped up when it is one of his proteges? Does he want to prove a point to one of his proteges to tell him like, hey, I'm still the GOAT and you're still, beneath me? Like, how does he approach games when he plays? I'm just curious, like when he goes into this game, is it any different for him than, Utah State would have been last week?
It's really not. I mean, I do think that just because of the public war of words that I think October 8th when they play Texas A&M, there might be a little extra juice in that game where Saban wants to send a message. But I mean, typically, and this is, I don't think this is a leadership secret of Saban, but I think part of what makes this operation go and part of why it's been so sustainable is that he's a big believer of not getting too high or too low off of any one result. And so guys will tell you, he and I think he truly believes it most of the time, or he's just convinced himself that he believes it. Well, he will treat the Utah State game the same as Texas. Now, is that always practical? No. And I think he realizes that 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are going to view a Texas game different than Utah State. But in his messaging to the team and how he approaches it, he tries to do it very similar because he doesn't want the classic letdown game after a big hyped up game. I mean, he wants to just kind of maintain that status quo, that kind of middle ground as much as possible. And so I don't think that he's going to be particularly amped up. Again, I think he likes Sark. I don't think that he's going to crush him or anything like that. I think he'll try to win, of course, but I don't see, he's just not that like big fiery message of like, let's go out and crush him. That's just not really how he approaches things.
That totally makes sense. A couple more things, because of his leadership style and where he's at, when Sark decides that he wants to hire guys off of Saban's staff, bringing in a Kyle Flood, bringing in Jeff Banks, Milwee was there, of course. Does he have to kiss the ring? Like, did Sark have to get permission from that? Or was there little tense moments where he's like, okay, brother, you're taking too many of my guys right now?
That is, I think, one of Saban's biggest pet peeves. Yeah. And he talked about it in a documentary. There was a documentary between Saban and Belichick. It's a great watch. I think it's on HBO, where he talks a little bit. I think it was before Sark left, but he talked about it really in regards to Kirby and some of these other guys. But he basically said, like, we develop these guys, we help them get head coaching jobs, and then they take these other guys that have also been developing to kind of replace those guys one day. And so Kirby took a bunch of guys with him, and Saban was upset about that. I do know Saban wasn't thrilled about all the guys that Sark took with him. I think that, Sark probably tried to do what he could, but, guys are going to do what they want. He kind of did Butch Jones a little dirty too, because Milwee was going to Arkansas State, I think, as the offensive coordinator, and then Sark kind of stole him to be his QB coach, which, I mean, obviously it paid off, helped him get Arch Manning, but just kind of the way of the world in college football. But I do feel like, I don't want to put words in Saban's mouth, but I feel like he's okay with one or two. I think when you start taking more than that, especially when you're taking position coaches, he starts getting frustrated. And I think that, that was a challenge for Saban last year, losing Jeff Banks. Milwee was a valued guy behind the scenes, Kyle Flood. I mean, that made his job harder and having to find replacements for all those guys. It's part of the turnover problem that he's dealing with every year. And, when you take a bunch of guys, that just makes it even more challenging.
And then what about when that same coach is taking some of his former players, like a Jalil Billingsley, a Keelan Robinson, a Jai Hall? Is it some of it he just says, all right, I don't necessarily need those guys? I know he did make a comment about Keelan Robinson, saying that he could have gotten more playing time up there, I think, the other season than he was getting in. Does he care that some of these guys leave, or when they walk out the door, it's just, next man up?
Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I think some of those guys feels a little bit like some of those guys got foisted. Maybe Sark got a little tricked by wanting some of those guys. I mean, I think Keelan Robinson would have had a role this year, and they obviously went out and got Jamar Gibbs, and I think they feel pretty good about it. I don't think anybody was particularly sad to lose Billingsley or Jai Hall. Those guys were headaches throughout the year last year. I mean, Billingsley in particular, I don't want to knock a college kid, but he was not well liked, I would say, within that building. Of course, he's dealing with a suspension as things stand right now. So I think, generally speaking, Saban does have the next man up mentality. I mean, it helps when you recruit essentially the number one or number two recruiting class every single year. The transfer portal has made things easier to also just kind of pick and choose a couple of guys you need to fix those problems. And his whole thing is based on a meritocracy. He wants the guys who are working the hardest. And I think in particular about Billingsley and Hall, I mean, both of those guys had opportunities in the last national championship game. And I don't think the coaching staff felt like either one of those guys necessarily grabbed those opportunities and capitalized on them. And so it felt like probably a good mutual breakup for all sides to try to, get a new start at Texas.
So a couple of things, I'll let you go because I know it's late, but you're doing, amazing. So I do, thanks to Blake one more time. Actually, two more times, but put that book up that John has on the screen, The Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban. Guys, you got to go out and get this book. All right. I mean, we're sports fans, but we're also educated sports fans as well. This is John Talty, who's also the editor at AL.com. On this side of the pond and this side of the states, this is a big game for Texas. Obviously it's a Fox game. ESPN Game Day is going to be out there. For you guys, you're used to this. At Bama, I'm sure there's multiple game days that you guys do per year, but this is a big event here in Texas. Give me your thoughts on this whole matchup, this whole game, and just what you're thinking about going into the Saturday.
Yeah, I think people are disappointed that it is an 11 a.m. start. I think that it's going to be a hot one out there for the fans. I feel like I've already heard some complaints from Alabama fans, wishing maybe it was later. They could have gotten a little bit, a little bit more opportunity to tailgate so that they could also be drunk uncles. But yeah, it is interesting because, and I have kind of, I've been, before I was in Alabama, I was in Mississippi. And I remember when Texas came to Ole Miss, it was a night game and it was like the biggest thing that ever happened to Ole Miss, right? And then Texas, beat up on them. But there are sometimes those moments that Alabama is a part of where, it feels like it's, that big, there's all that kind of energy around Alabama coming to town. And then I think Alabama fans are just used to it at this point, and they also and they have a lot of reason to. They just expect Alabama to win every game. And so I don't know if this is high up on the worried meter for Alabama fans. I think there's still a little bit of I'll believe it when I see it in terms of Texas right now, and I think that's understandable. But I think we're interested to see, I think a couple things. One, there are some flaws to this Alabama team, and Utah State was not going to capitalize on those, right? But the offensive line has question marks. Alabama's secondary, I think, still a work in progress. I don't feel like the running game was particularly effective for Alabama against Utah State. So I think for Alabama fans, of course, they want to win and all that, but I think it's some excitement around, all right, this will be a real test. I think they expect to win, but what do we see against a real opponent, and what, kind of some of those question marks we had, how did they play out against a team that has, good amount more talent than Utah State does?
What did A&M do so successfully last year to score that upset against Bama?
It was a weird game, I think, in general. Zach Calzada, who's now at Auburn, I think had the game of his life, basically. And that's, when you've seen those real upsets, it reminded me of when South Carolina beat Alabama. I think it was in 2010 with Steven Garcia. They just had this QB that kind of came out of nowhere and played a perfect game. But I also think, and this is, if Texas is going to have success, what I was saying earlier, Alabama's offensive line was a mess, I think, pretty much throughout last year. And the two games that I think it played the worst were against Texas A&M and then against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And Alabama, absolutely should have lost that Iron Bowl game. Auburn was getting in Bryce Young's face throughout the day, and that's something I think Texas A&M did a really good job. But Mike Elko, who's the head coach at Duke now, I think did a really good job of designing some different looks to confuse Alabama. And they just couldn't really get in rhythm and offense all game. And so I think that will be, for me, I'd like to see what does Texas do? What can they do to try to throw some different looks, some different fronts at Alabama, try to confuse them a little bit, maybe throw Bryce Young a little bit off rhythm to start the game. And, maybe you get a little bit of momentum and start putting the pressure on Alabama, because that's what you kind of felt in that Texas A&M game, that like Alabama, just was starting to feel the pressure. And you could just tell they started kind of pressing a little bit too hard, and ultimately weren't able to come back, and A&M won a big game.
John, last question, and then I'll let you run. What does Bama do? This team do so well, so far? I know it's only been one game, but what's kind of the trademarks? What are kind of the strengths of this team? Because on outside, what we've heard is that this is one of the better teams that Saban has fielded. In some time, all of last year, we were hearing that this was going to be this year that kind of like, his great team, and potentially his last great team that he has. But give us an idea what to expect from this year's team.
Well, I mean, it starts with Bryce Young, right? I mean, the guy won the Heisman last year for a reason, and I think he looked really good against Utah State. He didn't even have to do that much, and he still was just racking up yards and touchdowns. And so, one of the things that I think what's so interesting about Bryce Young, and there was a great story in ESPN today about him that I'd recommend people reading by Alex Scarborough. But he's so calm, he's so poised, and he just doesn't get rattled. There's never really been a moment where I've ever seen him get rattled by a situation. Now he's made mistakes. Of course, he lost in a national championship game last year. Made a couple mistakes, interceptions in that game, but he's just so calm and poised, and that's something that I feel like is such an advantage when you go into a really challenging road environment like Texas. That you just know your top guy is going to be fine. He's not going to get rattled. He's not going to be worried. He's just going to do his thing. On the flip side, again, I mean, we'll start from the obvious standpoint. Will Anderson is really, really good, right? And if I'm Texas, that's the guy that I'm worried about all day, just because of the impact he can make, wherever he lines up at and whatever he does. I think across the board, their defense is very strong up front. I think we're not as strong up front. Will Anderson had to carry a lot of that load by himself, and he did a great job with it. But I think they're better top to bottom this year on defense. Again, I mentioned I think there's still some question marks about that secondary, especially their cornerbacks, but they looked okay against Utah State. I'm curious to see if Texas can challenge them. But I mean, overall, you have to kind of pick nits with this Alabama team because they're really good at almost every single position. And even, where there's been question marks, wide receiver, what are they going to do about Jameson Williams? Well, they've got a lot of talented guys from top to bottom that they can capitalize on. And so there's just so many different ways that they can beat you. And for Texas to win this game, they're going to have to force Bryce Young into making mistakes. They're going to have to do a really good job of, stopping Will Anderson in the pass rush that's going to be coming at him. And, you got to put some points up. I mean, this Alabama team is going to put up points. There's no doubt about it. And so, they're going to have to put up at least 30, 35 points, I would think, to have a shot in this game, because I just think Alabama is going to find a way to do that at a minimum.
Blake, put that graphic back on the screen. John, tell everybody where they can find this book.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anywhere you buy books, you can get it. Amazon.com is probably your easiest one. You can probably get it in a day or two if you order right now. But otherwise, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, your local independent bookstore might have it. If not, you can ask them for it. But anywhere you want to buy a book, you can buy it. And there's, especially I think for Texas fans, I'll give you my little sell here. There is a whole chapter dedicated to analysts and things like that. There's a good amount of stuff about Sark in that chapter. And so I think people will enjoy that, enjoy how much Saban respects Steve Sarkisian. And I think there's a lot of stuff that if you read this book, you'll understand why Sark does some of the things that he does after, learning at the hands of the master of Nick Saban.
Thank you. Where can everyone follow you on Twitter for the Texas fan? Because look, Texas is coming to the SEC at some point, John, whether it's 2023 or 2024. I know you guys are reporting on it. We're trying to track that thing down. So, and I'll ask you about that another day. But where can everyone follow you on social media?
Yeah, we're all about to be one big family here. We're kind of it's like you guys are like marrying into the family. You're not fully a part of us yet, but soon. No. So follow me on Twitter at JTalty. If you like SEC coverage, AL.com is where I work. We do a lot of stuff, a lot of Alabama and Auburn, but we do SEC wide stuff as well. And so if you want to get a little bit of head start before Texas moves to the SEC, come hang out with us.
You got a score prediction for this weekend?
I think Alabama wins. What's the current line right now?
Blake, what is it? Is it still at 20? Blake's looking it up right now. Last time I remember, I think it was at 20. Yeah, last time we heard it was at 20. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say in that range, like 17 to 20. 17 point is what I would pick maybe. I think Texas, and this is Texas fans might get mad at me here, but like if I were a Texas fan, of course I want to win. But this feels like one of those games, if it goes the way it could, where it's kind of like Texas isn't all the way back, but like there's some positive things to take out of this game. Maybe there's a moment in the third quarter where they're winning or something like that, and I know if you're a Texas fan, you don't want a moral victory, but it just feels like that might be the best shot, because I do think this is one of Saban's better teams, and I don't think they're going to lose this season.
Oh. So I don't think Texas fans are going to be mad at you. There might be a couple that are drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think the majority of people are reality-based. So I think you're fine with that. John, thank you so much. It's time for you to go get your drink. So I appreciate you coming on there. Guys, make sure you get on there. Support my man who's come on the Drunk Uncle show late on a Wednesday. Just for that, you guys need to go on and support him. Go and buy that book. It looks amazing. I can't wait to do that. And I need one of you guys to buy it and then read it to me so I can have an audio book. But we got an audio book coming out at any point, John?
There is an audio book. You can buy the audio book on Amazon.
I'm in the house. That's all I can say. I'm in the house. John Talty, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
All right. John Talty, the leadership secrets of Nick Saban, how Alabama's coach became the greatest ever, AL.com. Hey, Drunk Uncle tries to bring you, a little something, a little flavor. People try to let the fedora fool you. People try to they look at the fedora and they think Drunk Uncle's not going to give you no substance. Drunk Uncle's got substance. Don't let the feather fool you, even though the feather looks like it's kind of clever. But I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I want to talk about a couple of other things too before we get into. I want to do a couple of more Texas topics here, but we also want to talk about a promo that we've currently got going on at orangebuds.com. Guess what? I always tell you guys, hold on, because there's always going to be a hookup call coming. Don't just jump on it in a random day. Drunk Uncles always tell you, I got your back, and I do have your back here. Now here's the time to sign up. If you buy 1 month of Orange Bloods, you get 2 months free. Essentially, my math is correct. 10 months out of the year, you get 2 months for free. That's not too bad. You got to use the promo code, though. Tide Take Down. Hail to the yeah for all you Texas fans. Tide Take Down. It's time to sign up for orangebuzz.com. This current promo is going until September the 10th. Now is a great time to sign up for Orange Bloods. Listen, this stuff is great. Love the YouTube channel, love the Twitter stuff, but at some point, if you're a real fan, you got to go beyond just the casualness. You're not getting everything on social media. I know you want to think, I'm just catching on social media. You're not getting everything on social media. You got to go behind the veil. It's like saying, I don't need Netflix because I got the stuff that's on regular TV, right? I don't need Amazon Prime. I'll just wait for that thing to be delivered. Nah, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying, hey, like everything, sometimes you get what you pay for. And so if you want to go behind the veil and get some amazing content, amazing analysis, deep analysis, recruiting news, everything that goes beyond the surface, if you haven't signed up for Orange Bloods, now is a good time. Use that promo code, and there you go. All right, so listen, one of the things you guys were kind of talking about, and it's kind of one of the things that I wanted to get into tonight as well. I started thinking about this game, and it's interesting because someone said people have been saying something. I've been really trying to correct people last week, and I'm still really staying on this week. Okay, people keep talking about this Bama game, and they keep using the word that it's a cliche. It's a cliche, and you know how it is. Sometimes cliches aren't the best thing to do, but people use them anyway, and people keep saying this one particular phrase. They keep saying this Bama game is going to be a measuring stick for Texas. A measuring stick for Texas. This is going to be a measuring stick game. This Bama game this weekend is going to be a measuring stick for Texas to see where they rank against Alabama and Nick Saban. This is going to be a measuring stick. People, when you hear it, if you say it, if you hear someone say it, correct them. Tell them Drunk Uncle said you needed to be corrected. If you say it, you got to stop saying it. And here's why. This thing is not called a measuring stick. This is not a measuring stick game. You cannot measure yourself against Alabama. I'm sorry. That's not a measuring stick game. This is just a let's see what the hell happens kind of game, but it's not a measuring stick game because you can't. That's like you measuring your basketball skills against Michael Jordan. That's not who you measure yourself against, right? You can't play high school basketball or even college basketball or even just be a first year in the NBA, so not to be disrespectful, and then say, well, I measure myself against MJ. You can't measure yourself against the GOAT, okay? What you got to do is measuring stick will be how does this team respond versus UTSA the following week? How does this team respond or going to their first road game versus Texas Tech? How do they respond after? Like that happens to be the measuring stick. It's not a measuring stick game, okay? This is a game that Texas is going to play against one of the greatest coaches of all time, with one of the better Nick Saban teams that they've had. But don't set yourself up thinking, well, this is where we're going to know where Texas really stands. How? Where? Texas stands where? Against the AP #1 team, against the greatest coach of all time? No, that's not where you want to measure yourself, okay? Your measuring stick games are going to come, but don't call this one a measuring stick game. And okay, so there's a super chat in here, so I'm going to get to that real quick, and then I'm going to get back into the other topic, okay? But Joshua Vasquez, first of all, good evening, Joshua. Thank you for listening to the show, supporting the show. That's all for all you guys, the Darwins of the world, the Dannys of the world, Chucks, all you guys. Kermit Wade is probably out there. All you guys who listen and support the show. And if I missed you, I apologize. But you know, I care about all you guys, and I will acknowledge all you guys soon. That the SEC is out there. All you guys are all great guys. But Joshua asked me this. If Texas happens to pull out the win on Saturday, there's going to be a whole lot of babies named Quinn popping up in next year. But go ahead. What becomes the season expectation moving forward? Does that raise the expected win total? Hook them. So keep that on the screen for me, because sometimes drunk Unc has a bad memory. But I haven't had. Have you noticed? Because I had a guest on, I really get a chance to drink a lot. So I'm actually somewhat okay. Okay. If Texas happens to pull out the win on Saturday, let's start there. Let's start at that portion of it there. Hell yeah. First of all, if you were talking, listen, anything you do past if Texas pulls off the win, I don't give a damn what you guys do. If you guys want to get on Orange Bloods and blast for the entire afternoon and evening, feel free. I won't delete you. In fact, if you do get banned, I will free you. That's my guarantee to you. You heard it here on the Drunk Uncle Sports. I will go against Jeff Ketchum, and I'll definitely go against Jason Sukamel, who we know doesn't like that kind of stuff anyway. I will free you from your ban. You get banned, you DM me, I'll unban you. Free the people. Give us free. So first of all, if that happens, that's going to be amazing. It would be an amazing thing. Now, if you talk about what becomes the season expectation moving forward, I mean, at that point, the sky's the limit. If you're able to knock off the #1 team in the country with one of the best teams that's ever been, the Nick Saban's ever fielded, everything's on the table at that point. Because now you go against a UTSA team, you beat that team, you're 3-0. The expectations get high. The expectations rise. You can safely start talking CFP again under this scenario. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Joshua, I'm asking you a question. Yes, you could go from 8-4 to dare to dream big, like very easily. And then I wouldn't have a problem with that. You definitely should talk about that, because if this Texas team can knock off that team, I can tell you one thing. There's been a lot of us who were kind of underestimating what this Texas team could be. And that would show us that, oh, wait, whatever we thought these players were, they're a hell of a lot better than we ever thought they were. So, yeah, yes, you can definitely, at that point, Joshua, if that happens, whatever you're thinking at that point, I say book whatever tickets you want, because you would definitely be safe. And at that point, John Cook was always like this. Live the moment. Enjoy the moment. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Down the line will worry about itself. We'll get there in October. We'll get there in November. We'll get there in December. Everybody always wants to talk about the long term and what happens this and that. Those things will take care of itself. Sometimes you just got to enjoy the moment. At that point, if you do it, hell, just enjoy that moment and dare to dream big. Now, is it going to happen? I won't predict it. But here's the one thing I'm going to say about college football. You just never know. You just never know. And I think sometimes if you live in the worlds of absolutes as relates to college football, you never, you might disappoint yourself. This is wacky. Things happen. We saw it last year, right? At the end of the season. Things happen, crazy things happen. So I'm never going to say never. You just remember that remember when Texas played OU and Charlie beat them that year? That's not a game that most people on the outside expected Texas to win, but somehow they pulled it off. That was a one-win Texas team that went into the Cotton Bowl and found a way to defeat OU, right? So again, I'm not predicting it, but I'm not going to be the person that stands here or sits here, I guess, on a Wednesday night and tells you don't believe it, don't dream it, that it's impossible. No, you're a fan. You should think that way. You should hope that way. You should believe that way. I don't want you to go in thinking like, man, we just got to bend over and take it. I want you to be hyped and excited and talk yourselves into that. That's what the special part of. That's the awesome part of this. You don't have anybody pissing your cornflakes tonight, man. Just it. Yeah. Could it happen? Tell yourself that. And then if it doesn't and the worst happens, well, damn it, we'll move on. We'll get on. We'll get past it. All that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, tonight, dare to dream big. Why the hell not? Life pisses on us all the damn time. Why not have something happy and fun to look forward to? I mean, we get crapped on at your job. You get crapped on at home, friends, family, all that kind of stuff. Why not? Dream big. This is a great question for you. Okay, now, but what if it doesn't happen? That's what I was thinking about today. Okay, so what if it doesn't happen? And this is where I want you guys in the chat, and we're about 300 strong tonight in here. So for you guys in the chat, I want you to think of something for me because I want to think this is the question because I have my own, and I want you guys to start thinking about it. So whatever you guys are starting to type right now, slow down, stop going back and forth with each other. Just put it all down for a second. Focus in on the for a second because I got a question I want to pose to you guys, and I want you guys to really think about it because I think you guys are smart. And I say guys, there's ladies in there. Guys is a general term. Please don't think I mean sexist. But I want everyone to kind of think about this one. Give me what you believe would be your 5 non-victories after the Alabama game on Saturday. 5 non-victories. So let's go into the assumption that Texas doesn't win this game, right? It's 20. Yeah, Alabama's a 20-point favorite, right? So we get that, we understand that, and we understand that. Okay, you're going to hope for the best, but let's deal with the reality of if it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, okay, give me. Thank you, Jeff Marr. Awesome stuff. Best show on OB. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man. That made my day. Jeff, toast to you and my Yeti. I don't know if I should put it up. They don't sponsor. Yeti, y'all need to come on, Yeti. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you. So let's talk about this. And I hope you guys appreciated the guest this evening because I really am. I'm going to buy the book. I'll be honest with you. I'm getting the book tonight just to show love and show support. I always like supporting people's dreams and visions, because man, it's hard to put yourself out there like that and just put yourself out there and write something and be creative and then put it out to the masses and then ask people to support you, right? So if we can, let's go ahead and buy up some of his books tonight because I really do think it's going to be awesome. Okay, so let's think about 5 non-victories because I've got mine 5 non-victories and I want to kind of see what you guys would think. If Texas doesn't win, what could you see on Saturday night that you would say to yourself, you know what? I still feel good about this team. You know what? I can live with this particular thing because again, we're not talking about losing against Texas Tech where you would tell to yourself, what the hell happened? Or UTSA, or you know what I'm saying? Like some of the other games where you say to yourself, okay, look, this is a game that Texas is not favored in. So we get it, right? We get the juggernaut, all that kind of stuff. Yes, King Kong ain't got nothing on me. Yes, we got it. It's Alabama. 5 non-victories. So here's one thing I start thinking about for a non-victory thing. The first one for me, number 1, is keep the score close. Like when I start thinking about what would be a victory for Texas if they don't win, I think keeping the score close for me is number one. What does that mean? There's a couple of variations of that too, right? So yeah, I think look, if Texas only loses by 17, and I know you say only loses, but it loses by 17 or less, I think you can say feel really good about that. I think you like even when Texas lost to LSU that year, it was a disappointing loss, but it was such a close loss that you still felt good about that team going forward. And you still tell yourself, you know what? A couple little things happened in that game. You could have won that, right? Now, did it lead to the ultimate success of what you wanted for it that season? No. But you still walked away feeling pretty good about this team and what could happen, especially going into conference game. So I thought that was, very interesting. And I also think, and that's a really good one, Jose. Move the ball on them consistently. I would totally agree with that. I also think, as it relates to when I think about keeping the score close, I think if Texas can keep this thing, 40 or less, like if they don't, if Alabama is at 35, which I know you're like 35, that's not what, but if it's like a 35 kind of, I don't want to say 17, but let's say like 21 or hell 24. Whew, that's pretty damn good, right? So for me, keeping it close, I think keeping the score close and keeping it within that distance where it's not some Utah State score, but is this a score that you look at as respectable? And you say to yourself, all right, we could work with this. I think that's number one for me. Martin, you say D-line holds their own. O-line giving less than 3 sacks. Quinn less than 2 picks. Texas shows toughness. Texas shows up in the fourth quarter. Martin, 100%. Bravo. Great. Martin, great observations. D-line holds their own. O-line gives up less than 3 sacks. Yes. Quinn less than 2 picks. So we only talk about one or none. Texas shows toughness, and they show up in the fourth quarter, which means they're not slunking out, but they're still trying to finish. Absolutely, Martin. 100% with you. Fantastic observations, Martin. Keep up the good work. Xavier shows why he's a top receiver. Of course, Xavier's a stud. I think games like the first game are just an anomaly kind of game. This is the kind of game I expect Xavier. This is what you want Xavier almost to that point to look like that Xavier that we saw that OU game last year that just came out on the first pass and takes it to the house. That Xavier that balled out. That's the Xavier that you want to see. That's the Xavier that I expect to show up. Like I expect that Xavier Worthy to show up and show out on Saturday because obviously he's just that freaking good. Jeff with 300 yards on offense, 2 sacks holding Alabama under 300 yards of offense. 2 sacks and holding Alabama under 300 yards of offense. Okay, from a defensive standpoint. Got it. Good stuff. Here's number 2 for me, okay? Number 2 for me, when I look at our 5 non-victories, right? 5 non-victories. And again, it's not a consolation prize. It's just understanding the task of what it is. And sometimes you got to look for the good. You got to look for the good. We live in this world of absolutes, right? Where everyone's always kind of like, well, if this doesn't happen, then there's nothing positive to glean from it. And it's like, well, that's not always 100% true, right? Sometimes something doesn't happen, you don't get the overall result, but there's also some good positives that you can get from it where you can take that and learn from that and feel good about it as well. Number 2 for me, Quinn staying healthy. You listen, the one thing we don't need is Quinn getting massacred out there. Like we do not need to see Quinn just getting his body off the floor play after play after play after play. Will Anderson is just having a sack party. Like you don't want to see that. You want Quinn to be healthy. Yeah, you don't want him to take a bunch of hits, and you don't want this to be a game where he's feeling it several games from now. And within that, if Quinn can stay healthy, kind of as a byproduct of that, though, if that happens, that means there's going to be better offensive line play. And clearly you'll take that, right? You will clearly take that 7 days a week and twice on Sundays if you're telling yourself there's going to be better offensive line play. I think that would be one huge non-victory if you tell to yourself, the offensive line was able to make sure that Quinn wasn't just getting massacred out there, wasn't getting destroyed, but he was actually getting some time in the pocket to make passes, to make throws, to make good decisions. If you're telling me that those guys, especially the young guys, are able to hold up, and not even just the young guys, the entire unit. It's not. They're not going to put it on the young guys. Like, that's disrespectful, and I don't mean any disrespect to Cole Hudson or Kelvin Banks, because it's not to say if this team struggles on the offensive line, it's going to be because of them. This still got an offensive line that's set to prove from those guys from last year that they're good and better than they were before. So I'm not going to sit here and say if this is a test for the young guys. It's a test for all of them, every single one of them, not just one guy. So not just some young guys. It's all of them. You name them, you're on the line. It's a test, and those guys can keep Quinn healthy, keep him upright. I think that's a hell of a non-victory. Okay, number 3 for me. Three sacks on Bryce for sure. I totally agree with you, Devin. And here's another one, but as Bryce related. So you kind of, in my head, just, I'm on the other side of what we're talking about. I think if you can hold Bryce Young under 300 yards passing, I think you should feel good about that, from a Texas defensive standpoint. If this Texas defense at the end of the night has held Bryce Young to under 300, I think that's a hell of an accomplishment. That means Bryce Young wasn't just throwing zip line passes out there all night long in DKR or all day long in DKR. That means he got pressure. That means he was rattled a little bit. That means that Bryce, as good as he is, as a talent as he is, he didn't look like he did last week, where he's just having his way, doing what he wants to do just because he can do it, because he's Bryce Young. If they're able to do that, let's say hold him under 300, I think that makes a huge thing. I think that would be one of my other five non-victories, if that makes sense. I want you guys to keep putting your non-victories in the chat as well, because I want to hear a little bit more of that. One of them, if Bryce runs for 250, then damn it, it just is what it is. For a guy who's supposed to be a little bit more of a statue, as that Steve Sarkisian kind of said on Monday, he's like, look, he didn't say he called him a statue. He goes, he ran a lot, but this is still a pass first all. It's almost like Steve was like, I ain't gonna buy all that. Like, you guys might have put that on film just to throw us off. Whatever you selling, I ain't buying. That's what it sounded like what Steve was trying to say on yesterday. Here's another one for me, though. Number 4 for me. It's Quinn connecting on the deep balls. I think if you can see that, if you see Quinn connecting on the deep balls, I think you tell yourself, man, that's pretty damn good. Like, I think it's because now okay, last week that was just first week. He's just trying to get in the rhythm. If he connects on a few deep balls here, let's say he gets 3 deep balls connected, maybe even 4, but 3 of them, maybe a couple of them results in some touchdowns. I think you feel good about his connection with these receivers going forward, and you definitely feel good that once they have UTSA the following week and then go into conference play, you feel good knowing like, okay, these guys are ready. Quinn is ready. These receivers are ready. You feel good about where this offense is. I think if you can see Quinn connecting, you can tell yourself, all right, there is some signs of life with this offense. And I know you're saying like, wait a second, they scored a lot, but we're talking about doing against a great team, a premier team. If he's able to do that, connect on the deep balls, I think it will definitely say something. Darwin says we need to rush for 150 or this game is out of hand. I guess the question for me, Darwin, are you talking about one person rushing for 150 or are you talking about accumulation of 150? Because if you talk about an accumulation of 150, what does that look like? Because are you talking like Bijan with 40, Roshan with 40, Quinn with 10? Or, I mean, like, how's that coming out? Now, if you're saying 80-80-10, okay, I can, that probably is good, right? If it's 80-80-10, then I can probably give you a little bit of that. I think if you can get to 200, now I think you're cooking with grease a little bit more. Cooking with grease a little bit more if you can kind of get all that. Can you number 5 for me? The number 5 for me, my 5th non-victory. It's going to be special teams not messing up. Can I just be honest with you? Listen, what we saw last week with the special teams problems, and I'm not talking about the punt block because that was great, right? The punt block by Sean Jameson, recovery by Keenan Robinson, that's awesome. That was great. Love that. But don't fumble a snap to you on punt against Bama. Don't do that. Don't not be able to hold, on a field goal attempt. Don't do that. Don't do that. So that's for me. If you tell me they could clean up those special teams mistakes, they can clean up all those little things that they did. That to me would be a non-victory because I'd feel a little better because that's just, you guys have heard me consistently say I'm really concerned about special teams. Out of all the things I've been concerned about, special teams has been the one thing I've continuously talked about, hammered home. I will just stay on this porch, man. Special teams, and again, this it's not a coaching thing. It's not a Jeff Banks thing or nothing to that effect. Jeff Banks can't the mental errors that guys have, that's not on him. These guys are put in positions to succeed. They just got to be able to take advantage of it. And they have people who are new in that, and they've got a pressure-packed environment. 100,000 people are there. I just need to know if they can handle that. Then I feel like, okay, going forward, they'll be able to handle the other games that are going to be remaining on the schedule. Stephanie says, clean special teams. I see you, Falker. Clean special teams. Yes. No injuries. We're on the same page with that, Steph. A sack on the Bama QB. A sack? You want more than that, sack. Okay, Steph, if you're going to give me a sack, then how many QB hurries are you going to have? You got to have more than one sack, right? You can't be the success, right, Steph? You need more than one, right? Or at least so Steph, I need you to expand on that. One sack on Bama, or if you're going to say only one, then you got to tell me how many QB hurries you're going to have at that point. Less than 21 point differential at half. I would totally agree with that. You want to be in striking distance. You don't want to go into halftime trying to tell them like anything can happen. You don't want to do all that. You want to be able to not have to call Madam Cleo, but you want to be able to say, all right, we're here, we're close. As Texas still giving 100% heart through the fourth quarter, no matter what. I'll take that. I'll take that as well. You definitely want to see some fight in there. You want to see some points being scored in the fourth quarter, quite honestly. But yeah, anything less than 21, especially at half, hell, Steph, I'll go further. First quarter, but you don't want this thing to be a runaway train. I would totally agree with that as well. It's interesting. Shivam Patel, I hope I'm saying your first name correct. I don't have the pronunciation for that, so I apologize. If you want to put it in the comments and tell me how to correctly pronounce it, please do. I got Patel. I just don't know if I'm saying it. Is it Shivam? Is it Shivam? But just please let me know because I don't want to be disrespectful. I just don't know how to correctly pronounce it. But Mr. Patel. Buy or sell, Ajay Hall will play at least 10 snaps. I'll sell that right now just because of the lack of practice for, the past couple of weeks. But is he a guy that should be in there? Yeah, absolutely. Just because you need big play potential. And one of the things I talked to Catch earlier this week when I was like, look, there's only one guy on this team that we know can cook an Alabama defense, and that's Ajay Hall. But point blank, we know he can cook them. We saw it in the spring game last year. Like, we know he did it in practice. If there's one guy that we know can, who knows these DBs well, who knows their weaknesses and their tendencies, who can probably exploit it, it's going to be Ajay. So he's a guy, to me, since he's off suspension, he's a guy that you find a way to utilize. He's practicing this week. Everything has been going well from what I've been hearing. And if you or Ajay, this is a great opportunity for you. You put him in a place to succeed. And thank you, Shivam. I'm glad I pronounced your name correctly again. As a guy whose name is Anwar, and so many people say Anwar, I'm just really sensitive about trying to make sure I pronounce people's names correctly. A drink to everybody who's still in the chat. We're going strong right now, and I appreciate it. I wasn't really planning to go this late, but we'll keep going for a little bit longer. Super chat from Eric Torres. I got Eric. I gotta think of a good nickname for you. I don't know. I feel like E is so played out. ET is kind of weird. But Eric, I need a nickname for you. I gotta work on that. I'll write it down. It's gonna be one of my homework assignments for next week. Eric, I'm definitely gonna have something cooking for you. To tell, yeah, I'm gonna figure. But no. Go back to El Presidente. Shit. All right. I mean, hell, if that's your nickname and that's what you want, or that's what people call you, then so be it. Eric Torres, aka El Presidente. That's easy. I don't have to think about anything. El Presidente says, for Texas to have a puncher's chance, this game needs to be a Big 12 shootout type of game. Amen to that. Texas front seven needs to shut down the Bama run game. Make Bama offense one-dimensional, kind of like Texas LSU 2 years ago. Here's the only thing to that, Eric. This is a pick your poison. Because if you say shut down the Bama run game, then you're saying put the ball into the Heisman Trophy winner's hand for the entirety of the game. And the question is, do you really want that? Yeah, I think if you have to give up something, I think you'd rather say, okay, I'd rather shut down Bryce Young and let some of these running backs get hot, because at least if the running backs are getting hot, you have a chance to potentially stop them and maybe not allow them to score. So maybe they're getting loose, in between the 20s, that you have an opportunity once they get down in the red zone to maybe shut them down. If Bryce Young's cooking, I mean, that's likely resulting in some touchdowns. So El Presidente, that's the only thing. I know you're saying they need to shut down the run game. And again, I'm not discounting that, but to me, if you want to shut down that passing game, because they are a pass-first offense, and the last thing I think you want them to do is start cooking on offense. I don't think you want those kind of problems at all. If you could do a shootout game, absolutely, you'll take a shootout, and you just got to make sure Texas has got enough bullets in the gun in order to compete. That's all. And if they've got enough bullets in the gun to compete, I hope that analogy is okay. I hope that analogy doesn't get me in trouble. Well, if it does, there'll be someone sensitive that kind of calls in and reports me to somebody. Don't say bullets in the gun, right? It's just an analogy. Blake said, we're good. This is Texas. Blake, why don't you come on in? Blake is being a little gun shy because I yelled at him last week. So this Blake is kind of staying back this week because I did yell at him before it came up to me more than one time.
No, we good.
Yeah, we are good. We are good, and we moved past it. You and I talked about this, about the 5, non-victories and stuff. Do you got some that you were thinking about as I was talking? Did anything kind of pop in your head at all?
I mean, I was just thinking keep Will Anderson at bay for most of the game. I mean, he's going to break through a couple times, I'm sure. But if you make him look like a good defender and not a Heisman Trophy winning rusher, I think that would be a good sign, especially for, if he's going up against Kelvin Banks or whoever on that offensive line. You feel better if you keep that defensive line off of Quinn Ewers for sure. That's one that's been in my mind.
Yeah, the Will Anderson one. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely Blake. Obviously, he's their guy. He's their stud. He's the person that many experts think could be the number 1 overall pick. Like when they're talking about you being like the number 1 overall pick, you're pretty damn good. When did he have like 17.5 sacks last year? Something pretty sick. Yeah,
he's gonna be.
So how many sacks does he have if he's in the Big 12?
Oh, I can't even imagine.
If you're watching, if Will Anderson was playing in the Big 12 last season and he had 17.5 against SEC, tell me in the chat How many do you think Will Anderson would have had if he played in the Big 12? Would he have like 25?
Or what about the Pac-12?
You have 30?
It would be a national record for sure.
What are your thoughts? Any thoughts? Any other thoughts about this game?
I got one more. And I feel like Sarkeesian held Jordan Whittington at bay for the first game of the season. We saw him blocking a lot and making big plays for the team. But I think Bama's going to try to do their best to hold Xavier Worthy down. And maybe that frees some opportunities for Jordan Whittington. And I want to see him shine. I think it's time for Jay Witt to shine a little bit. So, if Whittington's getting 5 or 6 receptions for a good amount of yards, I'd feel really good about the Texas passing game moving forward as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I guess we that kind of maybe goes into the keys to victory, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
get multiple guys involved. You want Sanders involved. You want Worthy involved. You want Whittington involved. And then you want another wild card. Who's it going to be? Casey Kane maybe making a play? Who knows? You need that other X factor that you didn't even think of going into the game.
Okay, let's do that. Guys. Guys, we're in the chat. We'll do this for the next 10 minutes, okay? Next 10 minutes, guys are in the chat. Ladies in the chat. I told you, guys, ladies, everyone's in the chat. Once you guys start talking about the keys to victory, again, everyone always talks about, well, Texas is not going to win. Well, bump that. Let's stop all that. Let's stop all that shit. I'm not doing that tonight.
Yeah.
What if you're saying for Texas to pull this off, what are the keys to victory for you guys? What are the things you say? Okay, if Texas can win this thing, then let's not throw the rose petals in front of for Bama. We know they're good. We got that. But if you got to say, all right, this needs to happen and for Texas to win. I'm going to go through your comments. I'm going to put them on the screen. If you super chat them, those things will get up first before everyone else. Just so you know, you got to let the drunk put a little. My lips are dry as shit, man.
This is the one right here. Edge pressure. Absolutely, Paul.
Yes. All right. But when you go into the edge pressure, are you who are you talking about from the edge at that point? So who the guys you think are going to put the edge put up there? All right. So keys to victory. We're talking optimism. Forget the negativity. It's drunk uncle time. We're being optimistic tonight. So if you're saying the keys to victory for your Texas Longhorns tonight to pull it off, Jeff says Texas has 150 rushing and 250 passing yards with 1 interception, and the defense has 1 pick six, 3 sacks, and 10 QB pressures. What's the score?
That's a tough one. Because the defense could have 1 pick, 3 sacks, and 10 QB pressures, and Bama could still put up 40. That could just be
the score is locked very close at that point, though.
Yeah. I mean, with 250 passing yards, 150 rushing yards, you're thinking Texas scores in the 30s. So maybe
I think if that's your stat line, I think Texas pulled off an upset.
Yeah.
I think you're talking 400 yards of offense. He didn't. So there, he didn't say what the rushing TDs, but you got to assume there's at least 2 rushing TDs in there. 250. That's probably 2 touchdowns in there. But you also means you're moving the ball. So there's probably a couple of field goals that kind of get thrown in there as well. He talks about the defense having a pick six. So, essentially, if you're talking from a rushing standpoint, you're talking about 2 TDs, that's 14. 250 could be another 2. So that could be at least the 28 at that point. Defense has a pick six, that's like 35. 3 sacks and a QB pressure. So even within them rushing that ball, and we're doing the 35, that's potentially another 2 field goals that could have been kicked in there because, you maybe got down to the red zone and didn't do that. So that could put you at like a 41. I think if you're saying like Texas at 41, I think I got a good shot of saying that Texas may have pulled off an upset. Now,
it's possible.
Yeah. I think that stat line There's a potential Texas pulled over upset or they lost narrowly, and that would be like a 45-41 kind of score. Yeah. If not, Texas may have won something like 41-38, something to that effect, just kind of to fully answer it. Charles, my man, Charles. Good to see you, Charles. Win the turnover battle, +4. That'll be, yes. I definitely think that's a huge key. I'm looking for keys. I'm looking for keys.
Yeah, we got a lot of people saying win the turnover battle. I do think that is a big one for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely think. I definitely say so. Like you guys know that you got to that. This can't be a negative in any particular way. Quinn's got to limit it at all costs. Cruise World. No turnovers. Now that's even better. One special team score. You definitely need that. Bama under 150 rushing. One score per quarter times 31. Okay, so he said it's one score per quarter. Texas 31. Bama 28. I mean, it sounds good. No, not going to debate you on that, Cruz. I'm definitely not going to debate you on that. Joshua has got a chat up there as well.
That's exactly what I was saying. Second receiver.
What do you say? Go ahead and read it. I'm going to take a drink.
Second receiver needs to step up as well, and JT having a good game. It will take the pressure off Quinn and Worthy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, look, if we can say that Jatavian Sanders that we just saw last week, and I think that's translatable. I don't think that's a Jatavian Sanders. He just did it against Louisiana Monroe. He won't be able to do that. I mean, we saw a play where Jatavian caught the ball and literally knocked out a DB by accident because he's just that damn strong. By accident, he leveled a dude. I think that's very translatable. And I'm a huge Jatavian Sanders fan, have been for a while. Ethan Burke, Jatavian Sanders. I split my time between fan club presidencies with those guys. But Josh, yes, I totally 100% agree with you. You have Xavier there. But yes, if you get your Jordan Whittington, to step up, I think that's a huge, thing. It's a huge time for Tariq Milton, and even Bijan. I know you say second receiver. Who's to say Bijan can't be your second leading receiver if they put him out in the flat, especially since they know that they're going to be doing a lot of focusing on Bijan. There's a lot of opportunities there to put to utilize him against a linebacker. I look for the play action too. I think you get some play action out there and really get people to bite on Bijan and go for that deep ball. That's something I would definitely be paying attention to and looking for. Bert Auburn needs to hit on his opportunities. How about every single one of them?
Yeah,
and maybe Card needs to hold. Yes, 100%. Card's got to hold. Card's got to hold. Car's got to hold. Sorry, person. You just can't take that risk against Bama. Could work you in, against UTSA potentially, but right now the stakes are too high. You need sure hands, and Card's a former receiver, and you rather have a guy who's a former receiver who can catch the ball. And hell, you might want to ask Card if he can punt. Just going to throw that out there as well.
You ain't winning this game if you're missing field goals. No chance.
Oh.
No,
you're not winning this game if you're settling for field goals.
Exactly.
I think if you're settling for field goals, you tell me Texas has 3 or 4 field goals. I'm telling you, this is a bad game. This is a bad game.
That means they got within field goal range multiple times and then convert. So missed opportunities.
We'll do this for like a few more minutes, guys, before we wrap up. Let's give me again your keys to victory right now. Your keys to victory. Right here. We got any more? I know we got tons.
Bryce Young to less than 200 total yards. That would be impressive if you hold Bryce Young to less than 200 total yards.
I mean, that's a hell of a key. I mean, now we're talking about Bryce Young got injured. So I mean, well, if you said 250, I'd say 200. Yeah, you're talking about $170 or so, $180 for Bryce Young. Like
Texas wins this game.
Yeah, I mean it's a hell of a key. I don't know how realistic that key is, Nate, but I like it. I like where your head's at, Nate.
Positivity.
I've told you guys to be positive, right? So
Quinn plays like a 1.0 player. Yeah, absolutely. He needs to go off. He needs to look like a 5-star.
This is to me where I said, last year we saw it Texas has seen this, especially we saw it against, unfortunately, the Oklahoma teams. Caleb Williams last year comes in off the bench and just looks like holy crap, right? The same with like Spencer Rattler did previously. But you need something like a Caleb Williams kind of fire. Again, different styles. Because Caleb Williams can use his feet, but you need Quinn to go in there. And there's a lot of fire. And you need to look at him and say, man, this guy's a difference maker. You need to be able to look at Quinn and look at Bryce and say, can't really tell the difference because both of those guys are elite. That's when you know you're cooking with grease, and that's when you know, okay, this team has got the chance to have a positive outcome. Just to throw that out there. Keys to victory, turn Tracy off in the locker room. Okay, LSU.
You've seen that one before.
Allegedly, but we've seen that. Keys to victory, turn to 8. Listen, hey, there's an outage. Hey, man, there was a power outage at the Austin airport this morning, man. There's a power outage there. Like, there's a lot of things going on in Austin that we can't control. There's a lot of use of electricity. Like, hell yeah, I would absolutely do all that. Why the hell not? And worry about them getting revenge when they come back. You guys go to Tuscaloosa next year, or we go to Tuscaloosa next year. Jalen Ford needs to really step up. He needs to play fast and not be tentative. Yeah, I've read Alex's deep dig for you guys who haven't signed up for Orange Bloods. And can you put that promo back on there, Blake? Just for those people who have not signed up, but maybe joined us late and had kind of missed it. But we got a promo at Orange Bloods right now. Buy 1 month, get 2 free with the promo code Ty Takedown. And how that's kind of relevant as to what he's talking about. Alex Dunlap did a breakdown. He breaks down the film in a really unique way. He has his own scoring system, grading system, everything to that effect. And he talked about Jalen Ford's productivity over the week. He jots and analyzes every single player, gives them grades, tells you what each person did, every single player, and that's on Orange Bloods every single week. That's what I talk about when you can go beyond just being the average fan and being the most knowledgeable fan in there. So now when we say Jalen Ford, there's a lot of things that happen behind there that you could totally validate everything you're saying. Yes, in Jalen Ford, as a guy who was banging the table for Jalen Ford all off season, he's definitely a person that I would totally agree with you on that one. Okay, play with reckless abandon. Yes, if that Michael 100% agree. And let me add in this: if that reckless abandon also means making tackles. So if that reckless abandon means, yes, you're playing with your hair on fire and you're making tackles and you're not missing, 100% am with you. What we don't need is them playing with reckless abandon and they're swiping. They're swiping.
Don't swipe.
That Dora Explorer.
Yeah, we'll be the fox.
Swiper don't swipe, baby.
Yeah.
Man, I've had kids, man. You know, I'm in the kid world where that's kind of like my first
reference at 10:30.
Man, I've been watching cartoons for like the last 10 years. I remember this, the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. You're too young for this, but you may have heard of it.
Oh yeah, no, I watched.
You watched it?
A little bit when I was a kid, yeah, for sure. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, yeah. It might have been replays, but I was watching it when I was young.
My kids watched it, so now I just feel even older. But I was about to say, well, you're my son, so there is that. But I watched cartoons so much that I started overanalyzing Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and I just started thinking, like, man, Donald just wants to be loved and accepted, and like Mickey's just he's so arrogant with his thing. Like he just won't let Donald just have his shine. Just let Donald have his shine, and that's why I knew I was watching too many cartoons. Okay, I know we had another super chat in there after Michael's. Eric El Presidente is back. We gotta get you. We gotta Eric. You know what? Okay, so this is what I gotta do, Blake. We've got it next time. Next time for next week, when there's a super chat, we've got to find a way to make them feel special. We got to put something on the screen.
Yeah, we talked about this. We need to think of something. Thing is, if we were Twitch oriented, they'd have something built in, but we'll come up with something, even though we're on the YouTube platform for these super chatters.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I want it, whatever it is. I want to be respectful. So let's not, but so we're not going to do like cheerleaders popping out or something like that, because we have women in our audience. I mean, look, women appreciate a beautiful woman as well, but something respectful.
No, we like fire Smokey the Cannon or something cool.
Something that we can do. Eric, I'm getting to your question, but someone said a fedora icon. Can we put GIFs on here? Is it possible? Is that you can't do a GIF on this?
We can play videos, but I mean, we can play a GIF, but it would like cut us out. Like we wouldn't be talking over it or anything.
Whatever it is,
about how it interrupts the show, but we'll figure something out.
Okay.
If you have any ideas in the chat, send them over.
Yeah, I would love to celebrate you guys who go into the super chat. I want to do something other than just say you're in the super chat. I want to kind of make sure you guys are being acknowledged. So just kind of a thought process. And this is all real time thinking. Okay, Eric goes, unleash the two-back go offense by Marion and dominate. Okay. El Presidente. So I like the thought process, but understand that that's probably not going to happen. Steve Sarkeesian feels good about his offense. He's been let it be known that it's what that stuff is cool, but that's not something that he's necessarily willing to go and implement. It's his offense. Now watch, that'll be all we see on Saturday.
Yeah, watch. Sarkeesian's been spiking the water this entire offseason, and then they come out with
yes. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I think Eric, aka El Presidente, I think what you've got to hope for and expect is just Steve Sarkisian to do the best version of his offense, and you have to make sure the guys do what they do well. Again, they didn't show a lot. They did not show a lot this past week, and that was on purpose. And so that's for them to have this. Remember, I asked Sarkeesian about this whole situation. He said the game plan that they had, they finished it 3 months ago, and I know Gary Patterson had a huge hand in that. And so we shall see what that whole thing looks like. Okay, let's do a couple. What is Jagmus saying?
Oh, real quick. Yeah, Jagmus, I've been checking into this, OBS and all that, and I know a little bit about it. The problem is we have a full, in-depth setup already built into Restream at the moment. So that'd just be a task to move over at this point, but it's maybe something we consider in the off season. That would be a much more capable software. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. You guys just really nerded out. Yeah. You guys just really nerded out. You guys had a moment right there. I'm not going to lie. You and Jack.
I like this key to victory right here. A miracle from God himself.
Listen.
Maybe that's what you need.
Hey. Listen, it's never too late to pay your tithe and your offerings and pray and buy a miracle. Anyone got any holy water? Does Benny Hinn got some left over? You get some holy water, throw it on there, and the miracle from Mr. El Shaddai himself, Elohim. Yes, a miracle from God himself, which, listen, you'll take and party the diet away. But yes, okay. So those are some of the keys to victory. Look, guys, it's about 10:30. We've been going for about 90 minutes straight. So listen, I appreciate you. Appreciate you guys checking out the Drunk Unk. Listen, here's my hope for you. I'm going to close it like this. Here's my hope for you. I told you guys are family. I like you. I appreciate you guys as family. You guys love some of you guys actually. You guys always show me love, whenever I see you guys around town and, going to stores, grocery stores, all that kind of stuff, and hanging out. I appreciate you guys supporting the show. So here's my hope for you. here's what I hope that happens for you guys. I hope for you and for all of us too, because shit, I want to cover a good ass team. I hope it happens. I hope God himself. God was like, you know what? I could be worried about earthquakes and volcanoes, and I could be worried about somebody who's about to get killed on a corner, and I could be worried about all these things in life. But God was like, you know what? The Longhorns. I think I need to shift my focus to that. And if God himself says, you know what? Here you go. Then you know what? I hope it for you. I think it would be an amazing thing for you guys. I want it for you. Unc wants it for you. No matter what I predict on this Friday, and I'm going to take the safe route, okay? But if we could come back here next week and we're talking about one of the biggest upsets in college football history, hail to the yeah. If that happens, I might drink a bottle. No, I'm not gonna drink a bottle of tequila. I have kids here. I'll go. That's alcohol poisoning. I can't do that. But I don't know, Blake. What should we do if Texas pulls off the upset?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if it happens, I'll see all of y'all downtown Saturday night. Party is on.
Drake is so. What he said is he will perform shirtless. With his face painted orange is what he said. That's what I heard.
That's not.
I didn't hear anything else.
You know what we do have official is a monkey tattoo going on a certain gentleman if it happens.
Oh yeah, that's right. Who was that?
I gotta go back and find his name. Good dude. I got him. I've messaged with him before, so I got it. But yeah. We'd have to broadcast from the tattoo parlor.
Yeah. We got it. Listen, we're gonna do something special. Like we'll have. I'll hire dancers just to dance behind me throughout the whole damn thing. Right over here, they could twerk on the stairs behind me, going upstairs, right by the family photos of the kids. they could twerk and stuff. Yeah, we're gonna do. I bet you. I wonder if I get a poll.
Brandon. Yeah, Brandon.
I get a poll right here. It for everyone.
What if we just broadcast from the Yellow Rose or something?
Yes,
there you go.
I bring my whole light set up. We'll do. It will be wild. It'll be wild. I promise you, if Texas can pull off the upset, here's my promise to you. If Texas can pull off the upset, I will try to have a show that potentially gets us banned from YouTube. It has Catch having to sit down with me the next day and me potentially serving a 1-week suspension. That's my promise to you.
Worth it.
I will 100%. Now, you guys may have to go fund me and help brother pay his mortgage next month, okay? But if you love me the way I love you, you'll go fund me and help a brother out. It won't take long. He said, get a mullet. Nope. Nope. No, that ain't gonna happen. But yes, I want it for you guys. I hope it happens for you guys. You guys absolutely deserve it. So listen. Go into the rest of your week. Enjoy it. ESPN Game Day is going to be here over the weekend. There's going to be a lot of tailgates that are going on. A lot of clubs and organizations are going to be doing stuff. There's going to be parties that are going on. My main man, my homeboy, is flying in. And maybe I'll have him on. I don't know if I can do the podcast tomorrow, but there's a guy who is a good friend of mine that many of you guys know is flying into town with me, flying in town to hang out with me, and then he's going to go to a Bucs game. He's going to go to the game on Saturday, and then go to his Bucs game and root for his Buccaneers on that Saturday. So, there's a lot of things going on this weekend. By the way, and you want to host me for anything this weekend, totally look for some stuff to do on a Friday night. So hit me up if you got any kind of parties, VIP entrances. Like if you got anything like that, got any kind of hookups, you want Unc to come with a couple of his friends in a really, really, really good VIP, email me at onward@orangebloods.com. Got dinner reservations on Friday night, but I don't have much else to do after that. So if you got something cooking, hit your man up. I'm open. But yes, hoping like hell that it happens for you guys. Hoping like hell that this is a good game, and I hope like hell that you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Remember, I told you at the onset of this whole situation, whole podcast, everything like that. If you had a good week, you're gonna have an even better week. If you had a bad week, it's gonna be even better. Either way, it's gonna be better. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hit like, hit subscribe. Blake, I'm going to make up for yelling at you last week. I'm going to let you sign us off.
Hey, folks, real quick, a shout out. This Saturday, if you're around, the post-game show, whether Texas pulls the upset or not, will be live. So tune in for that. And with that, thank you, Mr. Richardson. Shout out to John Talty for joining us, and we'll see you next time.